Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature video number 166, Ghostly Phenomena. It's a collection of various tales, some by the author and some by people he was corresponding with. Link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon. It's 108 pages, so it's more beefy than some of these works are. I'm plowing through a bunch of shorter manuscripts first. I wanted to sort of knock them out of the way, and then I can get to more of the more standard length works, talking 150 plus pages. In the format that was used in like the Victorian era in the 1800s, you take a 300-page work, it compresses down to about 150 in a modern format. Because back then they often use like double spacing and stuff. Second and third links as well to my books blogs, both on Blogspot and on WordPress. You can get other works. There are some other works that cover ghostly phenomena on the folklore list especially. A lot of it's academically geared. This particular work is quite good. The first section, the first roughly quarter of the work, is the author relating experiences that he's had. Like, oh, I saw this, this ghost, this phantasm. And he starts to develop and flesh out a schema by which he categorizes them, including saying, well, sometimes you'll see a spirit that appears to be a person. It's just a semblance, though. It's like an energetic semblance of them. It's not actually a departed spirit. It's what he calls an impersonating elemental. He makes up that term for it. Interesting theory. Second quarter of the book generally is about correspondence he's had with others telling him, well, I had this experience, I had that experience. He's skeptical of some of them, although in general takes it on a token that they're mostly real, or at least, maybe embellished, but otherwise real. And then he goes on in the latter half of the book to talk about some other interesting phenomena and also his opinions of certain phenomena. For instance, automatic writing. He says, well, it might be real, but I've never had success. I think it's a waste of time. He spurns the idea of seances, of mediumship. He says, yeah, spirits could appear at a seance, but the idea of going to a medium is dumb. Now, here's an interesting thing, and I point this out in the foreword. Elliot O'Donnell, if you do a cursory research on him, has been largely cast off as a fraud. And it's been pointed out, like literally, you go to the Wikipedia article itself, it invokes the fact that it appears that there's an ongoing theme about aversion to poverty within his work, and so the idea is, oh, well, he made up these stories to sell books and stuff. I'm skeptical of that claim. I'll tell you why. Specifically because of one part of this work, and that's the part on mediumship. He rejects it. In that era, mediums made potentially a great deal of money. Now, this is a person who appears to have been corresponding with a lot of other people, including people who maybe upper crust, and it was in vogue at the time. You could make a lot more money doing that than selling layperson books back then. You would have made much more money. If he was only in it for that, I'm willing to admit that some of these tales are certainly embellished, but I think that he had his own experiences. Again, think what you will about spirits, about phantasms and all of these things. I think he had at least some genuine experiences, even if it's just his childhood experiences and he's misremembering and blowing them out of all proportion. Because otherwise there would be no reason for him to reject mediumship. He would have come out and said, yeah, I think that most mediums are frauds. I know how to do it though. By the way, you can write me here. Nobody would have batted an eye. It happened all the time. Blavatsky was infamous for doing that. She made a huge amount of money doing seances and stuff. All of these people did. He would have looked at his contemporaries and said, why aren't I doing that? I'm sitting here busting my ass writing a bunch of books, spook stories, that aren't really making me at least an upper level income, when I could be making 2-3 times that amount just by holding the occasional seance. I think that I reject the argument that he's necessarily a fraud. Embellished? Yes, probably. And if you look at some of the stories, they do relate to real places. He's talking about certain haunted locations. There's one shore off of Brittany, I think he mentions, like it's a haven for ghost stories. And like, oh yeah, basically hear and see them all the time. It's like a common occurrence. Nobody goes out after night because of that. He talks as well about like haunted trees, haunted, places a little bit like that. And again, gives his opinion on some of these stories. Altogether, a well-written work. It's definitely in that sort of first-person style all the way through. It's less academic than anecdotal in that sense. But yeah, I would recommend it if you're interested in sort of that really kind of spooky academic side of that era. It's definitely an iconic work within that core of literature. Again, link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links are to my books blogs. There are other ghost-related works there, although not very many. And if you're into that general side of that early 20th century, late 19th century occult sort of academia, some of the opinions and stuff about these spiritual things, there's a great deal more information there. That's about all. Peace out.